All right, so we are back with number 6, okay? Here we have the square root of 7 times the square root of 7 minus 2, right? So we are going to use the distributive property, and we're going to multiply the square root of 7 by everything on the inside. So when we do that, the square root of 7 times the square root of 7 is the square root of 49 minus 2 root 7. Okay, well, the square root of 49 is 7. 7 minus 2 root 7. And unfortunately, those do not combine. They do not have like terms because this coefficient is attached to the root. So this is our final answer. Okay. Now we can take a look at number 7. We have 2 root 3 squared. So we know anything that is squared is just being multiplied by itself. So this is 2 root 3 times 2 root 3. We can do some double distribution and we can multiply the outers. So 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, and then we can multiply the inners, which is the square root of 9. Okay, well, 4 is all by itself, so we don't really have to do anything with it. But the square root of 9 is 3. So this turns into 4 times 3, which is just 12. Okay. And then same thing with number 8. It is a value that is being squared. So this can turn into 3 root 7 times 3 root 7. We can multiply the outers, which gives us 9. 3 times 3 is 9. And then multiply the inners, which is the square root of 7 times the square root of 7, which is the square root of 49. Well, we know 9 is already out by itself, so it's fine. And we know the square root of 49 is 7. So this turns into 9 times 7, which we know is 63. Okay? Now, in order for us to determine the area and to talk about shapes and some geometric stuff like we did in class yesterday, we do need to remind ourselves that the area of a rectangle is length times width, or, base times height, whatever you'd like to think of it as. We can use the square root of 5, and we can multiply it by 2 root 10 plus root 5. Okay. Now that we have this multiplication, we can go ahead and distribute it. Now, because the 2 is the constant out front, the coefficient, we do not multiply it. And this turns into 2 root 50 plus the square root of 25. Now, we can totally break up the number 50 as the square root of 25 times 2. And then obviously we know the square root of 25 is just 5. So we can keep showing our work up here. This turns into 2 times the square root of 25 times the square root of 2 plus 5 on the outside. This turns into 2 times, well, the square root of 25 is just 5 times the square root of 2 plus 10. I'm sorry, not plus 10, plus 5, right? That plus 5 on the outside. 2 times 5 is 10 times root 2 is just 10 root 2 plus 5, and that is it. Okay, now because the 10 is attached with that square root of 2, we cannot do anything with it. So we actually have to leave it just like that. Okay. So when we talk about the perimeter, though, the perimeter is adding up all of the side lengths. So that is the square root of 5 plus 2 root 10 plus the square root of 5 plus the square root of 5 again for the other shorter side plus 2 root 10 plus the square root of 5. Now, if you take a look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 square roots of 5. And we have 1, 2 root 10 and another 2 root 10. So because they're both square roots of 10, we can go ahead and add those coefficients that are out in front. 2 plus 2 is 4. So this turns into 4 root 10. And because they're both root 10s, we don't multiply them. We don't add them. We just leave it as 4 root 10. And this would be the perimeter of that rectangle. Okay. Now for number 10. If it's asking for the area of this rectangle, we're still using length times width. So nothing is changing in terms of the formula. But this one's a little different because notice this plus 1 is its own integer. It doesn't have a radical with it. So we're not going to be able to combine it a whole lot with some things if we're talking about adding and subtracting, but with multiplication, we're able to multiply really anything together. So if our length is the square root of 2, okay, times the square root of 2 plus 1, we can distribute. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is the square root of 4. Plus 1 times the square root of 2 is just square root of 2. Well, we know the square root of 4 is 2. And then we know the square root of 2 does not simplify to anything. So our area just ends up looking like that. 2 plus the square root of 2. Now for our perimeter, though, it gets to be a little bit interesting. We have the square root of 2 plus the square root of 2 plus 1 plus the square root of 2 plus the square root of 2 plus 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 root 2 plus 1, 2. Maybe I'll box those since they're the same. 1 plus 1 is 2. And this is our perimeter of the rectangle. So your homework for tonight, which hopefully some of you guys can start in class, is the very last page that says try these on your own. You have some rectangles, you have some area and perimeter, and then you have some distribution and then simplifying when possible. I hope you guys have a great Tuesday. I apologize for not being there today. Tomorrow for asynchronous, you guys will have an assignment to do on your own at home. And then we will touch base and pick right back up where we left off on Thursday. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good night.